Welcome to the Dynasty Playbook, Dynasty Fantasy Football subreddit's dedicated podcast. I'm your host, Drew. You can find me on Reddit at EAF Marine, on Twitter at Drew.NFL. With me is my co-host, Tyler. You can find him on Reddit at Barles and on Twitter at HBomb9508. Got an early morning show this week. How you doing this week, bud?
Doing good. It's early. I'm tired. I went to another geriatric jam fest last night and caught the Rolling Stones, which was awesome. But it put me in about 4 hours past my old man bedtime. We're going to limp through this thing, see if we can't put a good show together this morning.
Yeah, they all make it through the show. Everybody made it out alive.
They appeared to be alive, at least. I'm not sure that Keith Richards hasn't been dead for 20 or 30 years and is living on preservatives, but it was an awesome show. It was really, really cool.
I don't think they're preservatives. I think that's just all the leftover cocaine in his system.
There you go. There you go.
He's probably got about 30 years of leftover cocaine. I'd probably say that's a safe bet.
But, dude, I mean, they got down. Those dudes are old. You don't quite realize how old until it's front and center, but tons of energy. They put on a show, and, you got your money's worth, that's for sure. Really cool. I digress, but, yeah.
Yep. Well, guys, we promised we'd bring back the college player discussion. We were a week late with it, but I'm excited to bring it back. I love breaking down tape, and I felt a little empty inside when we weren't doing it right after the draft happened. So we're bringing it back. We're getting you guys ready for 2016. This way you can start looking forward to that next draft. You can start buying up 2016 picks with players in mind. And our first guy he's going to be one of the top picks in next year's draft. I don't care what happens unless he doesn't declare. That's the only way he's not going to be a top pick. That's Ezekiel Elliott. This guy is a monster. Number one running back in the next class. I can't see a way that anybody passes him up. This guy is a stud. He's got insane strength. I've watched him just carry piles of guys for 5, 6, 7 yards for a first down. Great vision, great burst, excellent top speed. Watch him outrun defensive backs for home runs, and he's got average hands. He's had some drops, but he also has good enough hands to make some really good catches too. So that's something that can be worked on with his game. He obviously has good enough hands to make the catches. It just has to be refined. Runs, routes, but good enough to be a running back who catches passes. His biggest holes, blocking. Doo-doo. I think I watched him make one good cut block in like the 4 games I watched. And maybe it's just because they don't ask him to do it a lot in Ohio State, because I didn't watch him do a whole lot of cut blocking. And stand-up blocker is even doo-dooer. But other than that, I really don't care. I mean, yeah, he might not be good at blocking, but if he's as good as he is doing what he does, I wouldn't be asking him to block anyways. I'd be asking him to do all the other stuff that he's the shit at. So I heart Ezekiel Elliott. What you got?
We found your first man crush of 2016, or your first of many man crushes to come.
Second, we already talked about Tyler Boyd.
I forget about Tyler Boyd. Yeah, Elliott's the real deal. Drew hit on his vision and his burst, and that's his main strength that I see is he sees the hole and he is in it and through it like that. I mean, he is out. And then when he gets to the second level, puts a move on a guy and then he's gone again. He's got 2 or 3 gears, which is unbelievable for a guy that runs as hard and as powerful as he does. He gets skinny in the hole. He can slide through just a little bit of a crease, just flip his hips real quick, and then boom, right back straight up the field, and he's moving again. So just a outstanding player. And he also has, and I feel I would be remiss to not mention his glistening abs with the jersey pads, looking like this Matt Russell linebacker. It's kind of cool that he's got that throwback thing going on, but evidently the NCAA is not going to allow it anymore because they're anti-fun. But yeah, Elliott, I mean, you never know who's going to emerge, next year. But I like Drew. Will be really surprised if we're not looking at the number one RB off the board in the NFL and fantasy drafts. And we're probably looking at a top 2 or 3 rookie draft. And then, but the talent is real. That's not going to go away. Something. We could have injuries or something funny happen and derail that. But no, this dude is he's the real deal. He's a stud.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot else to say about it. He good. So let's go ahead and move on, and we're gonna hit up a strategy and commiss question that got sent to us by Anonymous, and it's he brought a guy in to take over an orphan team about 6 months ago, right after the last season ended. The team is a complete rebuild with 4 to 5 solid pieces. The guy didn't personally know the owner, but he believed he'd never been in a dynasty league before up until that point. He's done little to nothing in terms of making moves. Half the time he doesn't respond to trade offers, never sends out anything, and he thinks he's made about 1 waiver move. Still has players on his roster that might not play in the NFL this year. And this guy's even had his first year fees waived. Now, this guy has had a couple of his friends that are fairly knowledgeable dynasty owners that are interested in this team, and he wants to know what he should do.
Yeah, this is tough. I've had to remove guys from leagues before for things similar to this. And first things first, you owe it to him to give him a chance. All right. So if you haven't already, you need to get in touch with them via email, text, carrier pigeon. In touch with him, and just tell him what the expectation is. Out of all these things, the biggest no-no to me is not responding to trade offers. If you can't be bothered to respond to a trade offer with the default time is usually 1 week. If you can't respond to a trade offer within a week, you don't have a place in any of my leagues. Now, that's something that I just can't deal with. I can't wrap my head around it. But yeah, that's what I would do. I'd say, hey man, you got 2 weeks to clean this up. Something needs to happen here. And bottom line, if you don't respond, if there's another trade offer that goes by and doesn't get responded to, even if it's just a simple reject, you're out. Period. You can't allow the integrity of your league to be compromised by one person, especially one person who is brand new to the league and has no real investment. At least that's my take on it.
Yep, you and I are completely in lockstep on this. For me, it boiled down to the trade offers. Everything else, not working on his roster, not anything like that. That to me is not grounds to remove an owner. It sucks. That would bother me, but all in all, it's his team. He's going to run it how he feels he needs to run it. But if I have an inactive owner, if I have a guy that's disrupting the league, not responding to trade offers, that's an issue. Like Tyler said, I'd send him an email, say, that ain't it. You got to be responding to trade offers. You have to be an active league member. There is an expectancy of activity, even if it's the off season. That's the point of Dynasty. There is no off season. It doesn't take a whole lot to log in and just reject a trade or send a counter. But based on what you said about this guy, I wouldn't expect a whole lot of counters. But I would send him an email kind of outlining all your concerns, but hammer down the point that if he's not responding to these trade offers, he will be replaced, because it's disrupting the other league owners at that point. The poor roster management affects his team. The lack of trades affects other teams, because they might be waiting for that team to respond to it before they send out that offer with similar players to other teams. And that throws off everything.
Yeah, and that's all legit. And The word activity gets painted with a broad brush in dynasty circles, and I commish several leagues, and I couldn't care less if a guy's making 1,000 trades a year or 0 trades a year. That's his business. But if he can't respond to a trade, that's just dynasty faux pas number one. That's just not something you do. It's inconsiderate, and it's just you just don't do it, man. Just don't do it. I mean, if the guy's still logging in somewhat regularly and not responding to these trades, that's a problem. And I'll bet you're going to send him an email, and you may or may not get a response. And if you do get a response, it'll probably be several days down the road because this is just a little side activity for this guy that's picked up this team. So, not knowing the situation completely, I would bet this owner's going to end up getting replaced here pretty quick, and you're probably going to be ahead for it to just move on.
Yep, absolutely. And we've got a good number of or I take that back. We have an IDP spotlight to talk about. And our guy this week he was my number one IDP last year, and that's Ryan Shazier. I was a big fan of his talent. It was real close with CJ Mosley for me, but personally, I took his athleticism as giving him the slight edge on upside because I thought they had fairly similar floors, but I think he had the edge and upside. I think his injury definitely kind of messed him up for last year. I think he definitely would have finished his year with not quite the same level of production that CJ Mosley had, but it would have been close. And I think he's definitely a candidate to catch up this year and close that gap with CJ Mosley in terms of value.
Yeah, and I wavered back and forth between Mosley and Shazier last year. And in one spot, I'd take Mosley first, and then the next spot, I'd take Shazier first, and I just could not put one ahead of the other. And then if you remember back to preseason last year, Shazier was an absolute animal. An animal. I do think Mosley's a better linebacker, a better technical player than Shazier, but Shazier has this just crazy athleticism and that allows him to make mistakes, run around blocks, take bad angles because he can catch a guy from behind because he is a metric freak, an absolute freak, on the tape versus the tape measure and the stopwatch. So, and right now his value it's holding. It could easily have been higher had he played all season, but he's still a top 15 backer for me. I think I've got him at 12 or 13, somewhere in that range, and I'm pretty comfortable with that. So, in some ways, it's a bit of a buy low situation out there, especially if the owner that has him doesn't really know what he's got on his hands as far as what he can be. I'm all about it. I think Shazier, we're looking at a guy I think his floor is, mid-level LB2. Ceiling is Levante David. I mean, it's that legit. He has that type of skill set. So love him, love him, love him. And, the injuries last year is kind of a bummer, and that's driven his price down because he hasn't proven anything yet. But I think I saw enough in the preseason in weeks 1 and 2 where he was out there feasting that I'm very comfortable investing in him as a top 15 linebacker.
Yeah. And I like that you brought up Levante David because that's kind of how I look at Mosley and Shazier. Not in terms of how good I think they'll actually be, but Kuechly and David are two different sides of the coin. Kuechly is this technical, just he is the quintessential inside linebacker, where David is this athletic freak who just does these amazing things. And Mosley is Kuechly, Shazier is David. And there are people that go back and forth. Some people would rather have Kuechly, some people would rather have David. And I think it's the same thing with Shazier and Mosley last year. Obviously, everybody's taking Mosley over Shazier right now. But I think if Shazier had played the whole season, I think we'd be looking at him as a top 5, top 6 linebacker right now. So I absolutely think right now is a buy low situation. And I think almost anybody is going to be selling him fairly low right now compared to what he could be valued because he's not getting any hype right now from most of the IDP community. And I'm not sure why, honestly. I guess it's because he's not getting any talk from the NFL.
You haven't heard much buzz on him, but I mean, the top end of the linebackers is sexy, man. You got Kuechly and David, and then you got Bobby Wagner and DeAndre Levy. I don't know how you say his name, but I freaking love that dude. He's a little bit older, but absolute animal. And you got CJ, and then
Ogletree.
Right now we love. Yeah, I mean Ogletree. I love Ogletree, and Ogletree's still improving, and he's 23 years old. Michael Kendricks. I mean, the list goes on and on, so it can get a little bit jumbled. And that's right where Shazier is. And yeah, there's some risk in taking him for sure. Yeah, there's risk in everybody. Now, there are only a few safe plays at any one position, but yeah, I had he played the full year, he's probably a consensus top 8-ish linebacker right now, whereas he's a good bit lower than that. If you go and look at the composite rankings.
Yep. And I think that's going to do it for our IDP spotlight. And we're going to move on to our submitted questions for the week. And our first one, I was pretty surprised to see this name on our Reddit, and this comes from Shane P. Hallam. It's how do you value the high upside second and third year players who haven't broken out yet? Players who seem to be forgotten, like Justin Hunter, Cordero Patterson. Are they good buy low investments, or will they just rot on your roster? Now, the first guy I think of when I think of high upside second and third year players who haven't broken out, my first guy is Aaron Dobson. Don't even make that face at me.
I knew it. You were going to say it.
It's
disease.
Like a cancer. Exactly. I love me some Aaron Dobson, and the opportunity is perfect. Danny Amendola is garbage. Brandon LaFell is Aaron Dobson, I mean, he finished off his rookie year looking like he's going to develop into something legit. He's the only one we don't have a real answer for why he didn't produce last year. He's the only one who doesn't have real competition besides Julian Edelman, who isn't going to compete for his spot. Julian Edelman's playing out of the slot. He's got Tom Brady. Hell, even Garoppolo can potentially be pretty damn good. And for what he costs, he's absolutely a buy low. His potential to increase in value as an investment, you could see such a return on investment. It's not even funny. And if he rots on your roster and if he doesn't hit this year, you spent the equivalent of a 21st round startup pick. That's like a kicker in some leagues. Who gives a shit? Like, really? I mean, I see people taking like Geno Smith in a 1 QB league there. Why? Why not take Aaron Dobson? It's like people forget. This guy looked great in college. Go look up this one-handed catch he made. I can't remember who he was playing, but this catch rivals the OBJ catch in how sick it was. Man crush aside, he's the best one to see a huge increase in value without having any significant capital invested. Cordero Patterson is still going to cost you at least an early third to get into. And he's got a lower chance of hitting, in my opinion. He still has to improve. He has to become a wide receiver. Right now, he's an athlete, in my opinion. I love Cordero Patterson. I was buying in because the upside is there. But if he can't run routes, if he can't get timing with his quarterback, then he's just going to get passed up by Stephon Diggs and Mike Wallace and Charles Johnson and Michael Pruitt and Kyle Rudolph. But I don't know.
Yeah,
and Justin Hunter, meh.
Yeah. The whole deal with Justin Hunter is I can't buy him low because one of my rosters. I am so inundated with Justin Hunter shares. It's not even funny.
Yeah.
And I I wouldn't be buying him. I really wouldn't. I mean, and the target numbers were there last year. And that's why I kept saying, all right, man, we can do this. We can do this. But at some point, the efficiency was just horrible. And whether the balls were catchable or not, the efficiency was just bad. I mean, he's getting 10, 8, 12. Target numbers were there. He just wasn't putting the numbers up. And he burned me quite a few times. I didn't pay a whole lot for him, but I still paid, 7th, 8th round startup picks for him where I got him. I turned down like a 106 straight up for Justin Hunter during the rookie draft last year and missed a certain guy named Odell Beckham Jr. I think it's fair to say that I missed on Justin Hunter, and it hurts me to my core. It hurts me.
106.
Dude, I was drinking that Kool-Aid, man. I already had J-Mat. I was locked down.
Oh, man. What was in that hurts. Kool-Aid?
Yeah, everything. It was spiked. Wow. Cordero for me, there's still a chance there. Cordero for me, it's not a guy that I'm going to want to go out and just buy Cordero. But if I'm making a deal and Cordero's on in there, throw him in on the back end as just a filler. Tavon Austin somewhat in that range as well, but more so in the return yard leagues that I play in because he can offer some utility there. But yeah, I think you're pretty on. And for me, the main detractor for Dobson is Bill Belichick because you just don't know what he's going to do. I remember Dobson was hot, and then they played the Ditto in 2013, and Dobson had been hot for a couple weeks leading into it, and something happened. He missed a block on the first series or something and didn't play another snap. Didn't play one more snap for the rest of the game. And that's the kind of crap that Belichick pulls that is just infuriating for dynasty owners and fantasy footballers in general. So that's the main thing that bothers me about Dobson, but I still have him on several rosters and I'll hold him. Give it 4 or 6 weeks to see what happens. If he does nothing, he's completely droppable. And if he does do something, like Drew said, you just got a huge surge in value. So corner now because I remember what I just did with Justin Hunter. So you'll have to excuse me.
All right. And let's move on to our next question. Comes from Total Maverick. How important is top 5 tight end production to a successful dynasty team, especially with how murky the pool gets after Gronk and Jimmy? And how much would you be willing to acquire a top flight tight end, as in value tiers? Are guys like Bennett, Cameron, Julius, Worth, first round rookie picks? To me, it's if I can't get Gronk, I'm pretty happy passing on tight end for a while. I'm not investing a first round pick in any tight end after Gronk. I don't care who it is, not Jimmy, not Cameron or Bennett, or especially Julius Thomas. Julius Thomas isn't even in my top 12 tight ends anymore. He's not going to get the sort of touchdowns. I've touched on it before with Bortles that he got with Peyton Manning. There's no way it happens. But I would rather piece together Jordan Reed and somebody who's going to be able to start when Jordan Reed gets a concussion than, paying up for Travis Kelce. And I have no guarantee that Andy Reid's even going to play Kelce right.
Yeah. I mean, is it important to have a top flight tight end? Sure. If you have Gronk, yeah, super important. Am I going to go out and pay what it takes to get him? In most cases, no, I'm not. Like Drew said, if you don't have Gronk, just patch it together. What I'll do, if I don't have Gronk, I might have 5 tight ends on my roster. Just looking to find one that hits, especially in the best ball leagues. I'm rostering a shitload of tight ends in the best ball leagues because one of them is very likely to give me a Gronk week at any time. In a normal league where you're having to actually set your lineup, the variance is just incredible. But I'll wait and wait and wait. Give me a Zach Ertz or an Eifert or ASJ or Jay Samaro or some combo of all that plus a Larry Donnell. I really don't care. that much about it because I only have to start one. Much similar on the IDP side of the leagues where I only have to start one defensive tackle. Just give me a guy who's going to play some snaps and give me some type of, touchdown potential. That's all I really care about.
Yeah, I really like getting those defensive tackles that give me some touchdown potential.
Yeah, I kind of, I think you know what I meant.
I did.
You know what
but
I meant.
I like twisting your words.
But
it's fun for me.
I appreciate that. I'm still reeling from my late night.
Yeah. As for willing to spend to acquire, for me, a top flight tight end, the most I'm willing to spend is an early second, picking up guys like ASJ, Eifert, Ertz, guys that I think have upside that can get closer to that Gronk tier. But I'm not willing to spend a first. A first is going to get me a wide receiver that's going to produce more than any of those tight ends will. And I can trade if it's a depth wide receiver, then I can trade that wide receiver for more than that tight end is worth down the road easily. And I think that's gonna do it for us for that question. Let's move it to our next question from Feel It All Around, which is a fairly interesting name. And it's
very suggestive.
I feel fairly suggested. Who do you feel is the third best QB pick post-draft in this year's rookie class, dynasty-wise? I personally like Grayson, but I've heard a lot of people suggest Petty or Hundley if Rodgers goes down again. Thoughts? For me, if you're one QB, it's Petty. Petty's got the best chance to start in the short term, and he's the only guy I think you're going to want to roster outside of your super deep leagues. And yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be a fan of rostering any of the three, honestly. In 2 QB leagues, in Superflex, though, it's absolutely Grayson. Highest upside, without a doubt, in my opinion.
Yeah, nailed it. Roster size is going to be everything with this question because if you're in a 1 QB league and you're sitting there in the 4th round or the 5th round or whatever, and Garrett Grayson's there, and you go ahead and take him, and you only roster 24 guys or something like that, you will not survive the year with Grayson on your roster, assuming that Brees stays healthy. You're going to have to drop him. So it's just going to be a burnt pick. If you were just awful at quarterback and Geno Smith is your one, yeah, I can see you taking Petty. Like Drew said, he's got the chance of getting some time right away. But yeah, 1 QB leagues, there's really not I'm taking any of these guys unless the rosters are just wicked deep, like wicked deep. 2 QB leagues, Grayson by a large margin. And even then, in a shallow roster 2 QB league, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to hold him until he gains some relevance, if he ever gains some relevance. Kind of similar to a Brock Osweiler situation, which has also been a tough hold outside of deep leagues. So, yeah, the question in and of itself needs some context. But, if somebody just says pick one, I'm picking Grayson. Just in a vacuum.
Agreed. I think Petty also is a good selection if, say, you've got solid QB1. Well, not solid, but you're streaming quarterback essentially. You've got a fairly good QB1, but your 2 is really like you're rotating between Carson Palmer and you need somebody else. Petty's a decent choice there. But if you've got 30 spots and your QB 1 and 2 is Ryan, and then I don't know. I don't care. I would have no problem picking Grayson as my third because in a 30 roster league, most of the time you're not going to have 30 guys through the end of the season that you're going to end up keeping because you're going to pick up all these rookies, and by the end of the season, not all of them are going to have a home on an NFL team. But Grayson will have a roster spot by the end of the year. He will hold his roster spot. And if Brees goes down, God forbid, Grayson's got value.
Yeah, immediate value. Sean Payton offense value, which is legit.
Playing with Brandon Cooks and CJ Spiller value.
Yeah. Yeah, where do we get? We got Grayson in our 2 QB draft. What, like in the mid-third?
Yeah, way too late. Granted, it was a 10-teamer, but still
a slam dunk. Still a slam dunk. He went early second in my other 2 QB league, which is a 12-teamer. But
that's too early.
That pick, it was early, I thought. But God, you should see what's available at quarterback. I mean, like Jimmy Clausen is rostered in this league. Now, this is
I did it last year.
Deep roster. Yeah, this is super deep rosters, full IDP. David Fales, is roster. I mean, you're handcuffing QBs. It's that rough on the QB landscape. So when I saw the pick, I was like, "Ooh, that's early." But then I was like, acquiring young QBs in 2 QB league is incredibly difficult. So
absolutely,
yeah.
All right, and this next set of questions comes from our good old buddy Bane the Geech. He's got 3 questions for us this week, and our first one is a rather crude question, but he wants to know, who would you rather bone, Meg Ryan or Jack Nicholson? And I'll let you take the con on this one.
I mean, I'm going to bone Meg Ryan. I'd like to be friends with Jack Nicholson, but I don't think I want to bone him. I'm going to take Meg Ryan. She's old. She's kind of cute. Was kind of cute. Slam dunk. No brainer. Not close.
I think it's because you're old and you remember what Meg Ryan used to look like 15 years ago. I don't know. I Google imaged it beforehand just to check. Meg Ryan in 2015, kind of rough looking, kind of leather skin in it. I'd rather do Jack Nicholson just to say I did. Because I mean, that's not something everybody can say. That's a good bar story right there. I'll make at least one friend off that story. I'll tell people that I did. I'll tell people I did Meg Ryan, and I'll lose friends over that story. They're like, "You did that? I don't know that we can be friends anymore."
Yeah, she's a grizzled old vet.
Yeah. Plus, my wife likes Jack Nicholson for his Joker, so I feel like we could bond over that, or not. I'm not sure how that works, but I feel like it's solid Dynasty content.
It is. It definitely. It's legit.
All right. Question number 2. He says, Drew, with Justin Hardy impressing in Atlanta OTAs, has he moved up for you any from your earlier 4th-round rookie grade? Well, honestly, before he had a 5th-round rookie grade for me, and he still does. I don't care. He's still 24. He still is limited to a slot role, which is going to not keep him on the field for as many snaps as I was like for a rookie wide receiver. He's still stuck behind Julio. He's going to be stuck behind Roddy White for this year, which means by the time he's the quote-unquote number 2, he's going to be 25. And by then, they could bring in another wide receiver. They're going to be sending passes to running backs. No, thank you. And I'm sure Tyler's rolling his eyes. I can't tell, but 5th round for me.
I get all that. I mean, he doesn't have a high ceiling. He's if he's ever a 100 catch per season guy, I will be so incredibly surprised. But I'm used that he's impressing at OTAs. And I take a lot of this OTA crap and run it through my bullshit filter anyway, because OTA news can be just incredibly misleading. But he's a great route runner, and he can catch the freaking ball, period. The dude has good hands. He's a savvy wide receiver. He's going to get on the field. I like Justin Hardy enough that I'm perfectly comfortable taking him in somewhere in the 3rd round. Not early in the 3rd round, mid to late 3rd round. I'd rather have Smelter, Waller, several other guys in that range ahead of him just because they profile a little bit better as fantasy players. But if you've got Justin Hardy as a bye week filler or like your wide receiver 6 or 7, you could do way, way worse. I think he's going to be fairly productive at the next level, enough to give you some fantasy relevance.
Meh.
Yeah, fair enough.
Meh.
and yeah, there is a large degree of meh involved in a guy like that, just because I guess he could be Antonio Brown. I don't see it, but anything could happen. Julian Edelman caught 100 freaking balls 2 years in a row. That happened.
Yeah, but he still wasn't Antonio Brown. So let's reel it back there, homie.
No, I'm speaking in hyperbole again, but
I thought we were speaking in English.
Yeah, we've seen slot receivers be productive. Wes Welker, Edelman. Let me just name off every white guy that's ever caught a pass ever, and that's kind of what Justin Hardy looks like to me. And that's his ceiling. Is that kind of guy. You are just absolutely killing me today. You are wearing me out.
Oh, well, I'm having fun. This is fun for me. I'm on my smart ass game today.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
It's because my best friend's in town. He's sharpening my skills.
I don't blame you one bit. I would be ripping me too, to be honest, and I would.
And his third question is, what's worse, seeing a league mate sign on during his pick and not make a pick for 8 hours, or having just the 101 and no other picks? And for me, as much as I hate the not making a pick, it's having the 101 and no other picks by a landslide. I hate watching all the guys I love go off the board and not having a chance at any of them. That kills me. I absolutely hate it.
Yeah, that is absolutely brutal. And I traded out of the first round in several leagues this year. And I had one, and I have a really good roster, but I didn't have a pick till like 409. So I had to sit there for 3 days and just watching. And anything I could trade for one of those picks would have been either a severe underpay that would have never gotten it done, or an overpay on my part. So I just had to let my rookie fever take a rest for a few days there. But seeing a guy log on and not make his pick for 8 hours is pretty awful. Now, I understand if they're wheeling and dealing, I get that. If they've got trade offers out, because you only have one shot at the draft, right? If you make your pick and you let an offer that you would have rather had slide by, that sucks ass. 8 hours is completely excessive. That should be able to be accomplished within a couple hours, but both are incredibly brutal.
Yeah. The only time 8 hours is acceptable. The only time 8 hours is acceptable is when you come on the clock right before you, like 11 o'clock at night, you send out a bunch of offers, and then you log on in the morning to go make your pick and go see what's going on.
Yeah.
That's when 8 hours is acceptable.
Yeah, I actually got ripped up pretty good in a league the other day because I put out an offer to trade up one spot to take your boy Devin Funchess. I put out the offer to move up from 206 to 205 to take Funchess. And then the trade got accepted. Well, this is one of those leagues where the commissioner has to put the trade through. The trade doesn't automatically process. And so the trade gets accepted about 11 o'clock. I wait around until about 12 or 12:30, and then I got to go to bed because I got to get to work, in the morning. Well, the commish comes in and approves the trade like almost immediately after I logged off, and then it's 7 hours until I wake up and make my selection, and everybody's up in arms. And I'm like, I couldn't pre-draft my pick. There was literally nothing I could do. And the guy that traded the pick to me, there was literally nothing he could do. So, yeah, the overnight lulls, I couldn't give a shit. But if it's Sunday afternoon and you're on the clock for 8 hours and you're on the clock for 8 hours, that's like firing squad shit right there. That should be punishable by cruel means.
Yeah. Yep. And I probably hate the league, the commissioner approval for trades more than I hate having the guy be on the clock for 8 hours. It is such a useless tool, in my opinion. I actually just removed myself from a league where I had grave differences of opinion with my commissioner on multiple issues. And he had that, and he's like, well, I need to make sure that there's no roster problems caused by the trade. I'm like, well, that's MFL does that. You don't have to do that. Or if it results after the trade, correct it or message people and they can correct it. It is extremely frustrating. This guy was just, I'm not getting into it, but that to me is a completely unnecessary tool, and I don't understand why it even exists, honestly.
I have it in one league that I commission. You're in this league with me, and you may not know it that I have it set that way or not, but I do have it set that way. Yeah, I do, because you know that it's a bunch of first timers, and I have it set that way just in case something screwy happens. They've never played on MFL. They've never really played Dynasty, and I will remove it once the league gets going. But you also know me that I'm completely OCD, and when I get an email, something happens immediately. If I'm on the clock, I'm there. If a trade needs to happen, I'm there. So for me as a commish, and that one league is the only league I have it. It's a good tool to have, but I'm never going to let a trade just hang around for any more than 20 minutes before I go push it through. So I get where you're coming from. I get where you're coming from, and it is super annoying when you made that trade with that guy, and you want to play with your new toys and see him on your roster, but you got to wait for the commish. Yeah, and in that particular instance, it's a total rebuild team for me, and I had a bunch of picks, and I just wanted to see Devin Funchess on my roster. I really wanted it, and I had to wait. But basically, it came down to the whole deal: Devin Funchess or Duke Johnson for me. I moved up one spot because it was going to be one of those two guys, and I was afraid I was going to get sniped on Funch. And I like Duke Johnson, but that situation, I know we preach talent over situation, but that situation sucks in Cleveland.
And that's situation comes in when you're differentiating between tiers, and that's close enough in tiers to where that situation's tiebreaker for me pretty easily. And talking about, you approve it in 20 minutes. I've waited 2 days for this guy to approve trades for me when I was in that league. That's unacceptable.
Yeah, that's bogus. And anything could happen between now and then. You know what I mean? You just done, get it done. I don't want this to go away.
Yeah.
Right?
Actually, I had that with, I was trading Charles Johnson for a second, and this was, for some reason, this was around the time we were talking about them signing a wide receiver. This is right when free agency was starting. And if they had signed a wide receiver and that deal got kicked back because he didn't accept it fast enough, or he didn't process it fast enough, I'd have been furious.
Mm-hmm.
And not even because I just missed out on a second. It'd have been the principle of it.
Yeah. And good on you for trading Charles Johnson for a second. That's a nice move. You got rid of a guy who barely exists for a second rounder. Good job. That's a little jab at our buddy Pat there.
I like Charles Johnson, though. So it's...
Yeah. I'm just salty because I had him rostered last year in a few spots, and then as soon as Cleveland cut him, I was like, you're out of here. Just drop his ass. And then by the time, steam picks up again, he's gone.
Too late.
So I'm bitter and jaded.
All right. Well, I think that's enough on that. Let's move on to our next question, which is a fairly in-depth one that we've spent a decent amount of time on ourselves. This one comes from Pud Luther, if that's how you say it, Pud Luther, I guess. And it's I have a question that I need some outside advice, suggestions on. We're looking to expand our league by 2 teams in the next year or so. We're a Dynasty PPR league with a salary cap. We currently have 2 divisions of 5 teams, and they're running team defense with the possibility of transitioning to IDP in the next year or 2. They have 20 main roster spots with 5 taxi squad spots for players with 3 years and under. They start 6 wide receiver, tight end, running back, and 1 QB. So the biggest question right off the bat is, how does an expansion draft work when we move to 12 teams? Which players will be available? Do we franchise certain players on each team to keep them from being subject to the expansion draft? And if so, how many? What positions? How do we handle the 2 incoming teams? I just lost my spot. Shoot. How do we handle the 2 incoming teams as far as divisional assignment, scheduling, expansion draft order, and rookie draft the following season? Also, I'm curious as to how the additional roster spots will affect the free agent market. Will it be necessary to cut roster size from the current 20 plus 5 setup? Any advice suggestions would be greatly appreciated. Now, we've had a bunch of experience in this because Tyler and I are both in a 10-team Superflex IDP league that I commission. It's 10-team because we started up is an auction startup right before the season started last year. Like we had to speed up the auction timer to make sure we finished before the season started. Last minute. But it went 10-team because we couldn't even find 12 guys to do it. We got some great guys in there. A lot of the guys we knew, but it was finding those last onesies and twosies that was a pain. And we probably shouldn't have done the league at all, to be completely honest. But we talked about it a lot towards the end of the season and at the beginning of this off season. We're like, let's expand to 12 teams. This league, I feel like this league would feel better if it was 12. The competition would be better if it was 12. And we discussed so many different ways that we could do it. But it came down to we're going to have to steal players from other people's rosters. The 2 expansion teams are going to be extremely weak right off the bat. We're going to have to give them top rookie picks at least 2 years in a row. My initial idea was let's not even put owners in charge of the teams the first year. Or we get owners, but they don't actually compete the first year. They're not even involved in matchups. They just build their team. That way they get their rookie picks and that's it. And I did that in order to not kind of screw up the league dynamics in terms of competing that year first year because they're going to be so weak. And it caused so many problems because one team built super, super young. They built crazy depth. And that roster was going to get picked clean from so much of that depth because they couldn't protect their entire roster. Where some of us auctioned and built, 8 high quality players and skimped on depth a ton. And it would have been extremely unfair to certain members of the league. And it would have been, it just wouldn't have been fair. So if I'm being completely honest, the only fair way to do an expansion league, to expand your league, is to completely redraft. And I know that's not what you want to hear because everybody's got their team in place. Everybody's happy with their team, hopefully, but it's the best way to do it. And as for the roster size, that's probably the right size. I would actually be looking at expanding, especially if you're going IDP. You definitely have to expand, but 25 is probably the right size for as many players you're starting. Nine starting spots is probably about right for 25 roster spots.
Yeah, there's just no elegant solution to it. There really isn't. Somebody's gonna get jabbed on the deal. Like Drew said, either the guy who built super young, and like the league we're in, I went studs and duds in the auction. I got super good top end talent, but my depth is crap. So if I had to give up any one of my, elite tier players, my team is immediately way worse than it was. And like our buddy Tim built probably the best team I've seen in any one of my leagues. He has literally 100% of the 14 rookies except for Cooks and J-Matt, who Drew and I have. He's got Russell Wilson. I mean, he just has this unbelievable team. And if he had to get poached, that would be terrible.
I got OBJ.
You do have OBJ, and you got him for like $1.
$1. Got him at the end of the auction.
God, that auction was something else. I mean, we literally I think we finished the auction Wednesday night and season kicks off Thursday. And that just shows you what a disease we have, that we're like, let's do one more league and let's make it a crazy 55-man roster auction.
22 starting spots.
Super flex. I mean, why not? Let's just throw caution to the wind. But it's a really cool league. It's a sweet league. We got some really good guys in there. It's one of one of my favorite leagues that we play in. One of my favorite teams that I have too. Yeah, I would say what I would want to do is let's just keep this league exactly as it is and let's fire up a new league. Because why not? More leagues equals more fun.
But we know exactly how you feel. It's like when you have a league that you enjoy that much, you want to get more people in it. You want to make it more fun. You want to involve more people in it. But honestly, if you end up screwing over a person or two, even if you don't intentionally do it, they'll get hard feelings. They'll start having resentments towards the league, and it'll actually ruin some of the fun for your league, I think. Which I'm sure that's not your intention, but that'll be how it ends up working out.
I think you could add IDP auction, just IDP players and just auction. I think that would be really, really cool to add IDP. I was trying to think in my head, could you do a snake draft? Yeah, you could, but how do you set the order? Could you do a snake draft with third round reversal, which might even it up a little bit better? You could do something like that. But if you want to add IDP, give everybody $500, set your IDP requirements, and throw an auction out there. I think that would be freaking fun. And I don't see any way that that's detrimental to anyone individual. Do you?
No, I think you either do it that way or you just expand how many rounds your rookie draft is for a year and just include them in your rookie draft.
Ooh,
because
cool.
Honestly, how much more is JJ Watt worth? Even in any of our IDP leagues, which are really fair scoring, how much more is he worth than Amari Cooper or Todd Gurley? Not significantly more.
No,
and
nothing crazy.
If it's the 101, let him have a little extra juice to kind of build his team up.
That's another interesting idea. We need to get this done in some of our leagues that don't have IDP.
Good luck. Let's tell Pat, hey, Dynasty as hell is going to go be IDP next year.
The wheels are turning, man. The wheels are turning. You know me. Once I set my mind to something, it happens. The stash is getting IDP next offseason. It's
all
coming.
Right. Let's hit up our last question though, and this comes from @something ABTFBT, something about football. Is there a best practice when proposing a trade? Do you write a short comment? Do you throw out an offer and just hope owner responds? Personally, the only time I write a short comment is when I'm proposing a guy I'm trying to sell, or when I'm trying to get a guy from them, but I'm trying to disguise it as, let me sell you this guy that's pretty good, but I don't want to make it obvious that I'm trying to snag this guy from you that I want to get on the down low. I want to be sneaky about it. You got any interest in Schmedebe? But I don't think it honestly works. But I'm going to keep doing it. So for anybody that trades with me, you just blew the doors open off all my trade secrets.
Yeah, if Drew writes a note, he's trying to sell you a dog turd. Yeah, and quick note, something about football. Chris and Scotty Fishwater and Justin Hustis are running these Fantasy Cares leagues, which are really cool. There's one, it's Help Allie Roland, and then there's another one, it's Team Hannah. It's some young ladies who are down on their luck and need some help. And it's a really cool deal because they're just little best ball leagues similar to MFL 10s, where you just go to their GoFundMe page, make a donation as much as you want, as little as $10, and then you get to play in a cool league with some really cool guys, and everybody's doing a good thing. So they're doing a really good thing, and the Fantasy Cares movement is going on, and those three dudes are just awesome dudes, to know and to talk to on Twitter. They're just great guys. So I just wanted to throw that in there real quick. And to the question at hand, if I don't know the guy, like if I don't know him personally, I'll usually just send the offer. I prefer, like, if Drew and I are talking text or talking trade, or some of my buddies are talking, some of the other guys that I know are talking trade. I'd rather let's just talk this out before I even send an offer. Let's get on Voxer, let's text, let's email, something like that, and be like, hey, this is what I'm interested. What do you think? And more often than not, Drew and I don't get a deal done because we're stubborn asses. But I prefer to get some kind of narrative going when I'm making a trade. More often than not, if I'm just making an offer to just a random person in a league that I don't know, I just send the offer. If it's a counter, I'll put in a note. But like Drew said, if I do include a note, there's a good chance that I'm trying to tell you why Joseph Randle's going to run for 2,500 yards next year. Something like that.
Yeah. You say it's because we're both stubborn asses. I think it's because you send me boxes that just say, trade me Levante David.
That's what I tell Pat. Just give me what I want and nobody gets hurt.
I don't think that's effective trade communication, but I'm not an expert.
It's persistence. Persistence pays off. If I just keep saying it, maybe one day you go, you know what? I should trade him Levante David.
But I don't want Eric Decker.
Everybody wants Eric Decker.
You don't even want Eric Decker.
14-team mocker said he is a handsome man, and I believe him.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize I got handsome points on my fantasy roster.
It's got to count for something, right?
Not on my fantasy roster. I'm sure it counts at home with his hot wife, but
I do want Decker, but I don't want Decker and Brandon Marshall. The idea of having two Jets in my starting lineup is a problem.
Well, I don't want him on my bench.
He's legit, dude. He's legit. He's going to finish. He's going to roll up 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns this year.
Yeah, he'll probably do all right, but Levante David's going to be the linebacker one, so it's giving up a lot for like a guy who's going to be like my wide receiver 6 or 7.
My punting linebacker strategy, and I'm the biggest linebacker punter you've ever met. And I have no Kuechly's, and I have no Davids, and I have no Bobby Wagners. I just don't have any of the super stud linebackers, and it's kind of upsetting, really. Maybe Navarro comes back healthy because I got a lot of Navarro. He's old and hurt. Just give me David. It's easy. Just do it.
Yeah, and that's gonna put a bow on it. And we're gonna move into my rant of the week, and that's why can't I go through at least one show every week without my dogs barking in the background? Come on. 1 week without barking dogs. That would be fantastic. I don't know if you guys can hear them, but I can hear them. So I assume you can hear them. But that's going to be it. That's all I got. You got any last parting shots for us this week?
Nope. I think we rambled on sufficiently long this week. I'm all out.
I was born to be a rambling man.
Lame.
I know, right? That was pretty bad. I might have to edit that out for the actual audio podcast. But
dad joke.
that might be worse than a dad joke. But I told y'all I was starting the 2 QB mock drafts. Well, last week got super busy, so none of them got started. So that's actually going to happen this week. I know, Deck, you're sufficiently upset at me, I'm sure. It's coming. That's all I got. Don't forget, you guys can catch us on iTunes and Stitcher. And that's all we got for this week. This has been the Dynasty Playbook, Dynasty Fantasy Football Subreddit's dedicated podcast. I've been your host, Drew. You can catch me on Reddit at EAF Marine and on Twitter at Drew.NFL. With me has been my excellent co-host, Tyler. You can find him on Reddit at Barles and on Twitter at HBomb9508. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again next week.